Hey everyone, it's Steven. Today I have the 2021 Acura TLX A-Spec. This is the second generation of Acura's mid-size sedan here. This is the A-Spec trim, so it's a little more sporty looking than the original one. And this is actually Acura's entry into the mid-size sedan segment here. And it fits right between something like the 3 Series and the 5 Series, which is kind of interesting, right? Because it's not as small as something like the 3 Series, though it is priced similar to that, but it's smaller than something like the 5 Series BMW. So kind of a weird area there. This starts right around $37,000, which actually makes it the cheapest entry into this segment, which is a big reason why people would go to something like this. And I mean, I think personally this car looks fantastic for that price. So the actual A-Spec trim here I have is right around $46,000 for the MSRP, which is still very, very cheap for the segment, right? Something like the 5 Series starts at about $50,000. So this is still much cheaper than those cars. The A-Spec trim here gives you some new exterior styling elements, like some blacked out stuff at the front, and you've also got a different rear diffuser and a rear spoiler on the back. I really think the A-Spec trim fits this car really well because this generation is longer, lower, and wider than the previous generation, which makes it look a lot more muscular and aggressive. The A-Spec package also does come with some tech goodies, such as the really nice 17-speaker ELS premium audio sound system, one of the best in the industry right now. And it also does come with things like LED fog lights, ambient interior lighting, and a host of other really nice standard safety features that you would expect, like front and rear parking sensors, blind spot monitors, all that sort of good stuff. So front-wheel drive is actually standard for this car, and you can add Acura's very famous super handling all-wheel drive for about $2,000 to the MSRP. So that's what actually brings this one up to $46,000 with the A-Spec package here. However, it is important to note that the A-Spec is only a styling appearance package, which means that the actual engine itself is still the exact same that is in the original. You've got a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder that generates 272 horsepower and 280 pound-feet of torque. Those aren't actually the craziest numbers, but I will say this really moves, and I think that's what Acura did really well here, is they made a refined sports sedan that actually feels fun to drive. Like, I feel like the 3 Series has always been the king in that area, but this is actually so fun to drive, and you can kind of see, right, with this black spoiler in the back, right, you would expect this to be a pretty fast car. This goes 0 to 60 in about 5.9 seconds. That's pretty good compared to something else, right? Like, I think the reason that I compare this a lot to what I currently drive is the Lexus ES, which is a very strong competitor to this, but the ES is a lot more meant to be like a luxury type of segment, whereas this is more of a sporty sedan, and it feels this way, right? This is comfortable, but it's not as much of a boat as the ES is, but this is much faster and it feels aggressive, and it actually has a pretty nice exhaust note. A 10-speed automatic transmission is also standard across the entire lineup, and as you would expect from Honda and Acura, it is very refined. The smooths are super shift, you can't even really feel that sort of stuff. When you put this car into sport mode though, it does stay at high RPMs and you are able to kind of feel that aggressive pull when you're actually on throttle. So looking at the exterior of the car here, we're going to start in the rear here with the trunk here. You have a button on the side here that opens it, and you've got 13.5 cubic feet of cargo space here. This really isn't impressive or anything like that. I will note that you actually can put the seats back, the rear seats back down from here, which is really nice compared to some other cars. Like for example, in my ES, you actually can't put the rear seats down. So you can actually extend the cargo space quite a bit in this vehicle. Also, like I said before, you've got this really nice black lip spoiler at the very top of the trunk. I think it looks really nice, and I really love what Acura did here in the back with the tail lights. I'm a big sucker for taillights that kind of curve onto the side of the car, and I think they did a really good job here. You can see the badging. You've also got the super handling all-wheel drive, of course, and you also have the A-Spec badging on the left-hand side as well. And the back, you've got this kind of interesting diffuser here. So, I mean, it doesn't look like a traditional rear diffuser here, but this is actually what Acura calls their rear diffuser. This looks a lot different than what is on the standard TLX without the A-Spec trim. So moving on to the side profile of this car, you do have some very nice alloy wheels on the A-Spec trim. I think this is one of my favorite parts of the A-Spec trim itself. These are 19-inch shark gray metallic wheels here, and they look really nice. Take a look at these. I will say the 19-inch really adds to that aggressive appearance and does give this car, I will say, a less refined ride, but it does make the chassis feel a lot more sporty in general, which I really like. I will note that the A-Spec trim actually lowers your fuel economy a little bit. You've got 21 city and 29 highway miles per gallon for a combined of about 25. That is a little lower than what is expected in this segment, but still not anything crazy. All right, so now that we're at the front of the vehicle, you can kind of see the changes that Acura made for the fully redesigned second generation. This is very different from what it looked like before, and I think they made some really great changes. I really like how they made the headlights more sleek, and you know, the fully LED headlights look fantastic. You've also got LED fog lights here as well. And you can see the blacked out stuff here. This is not actually a real exhaust vent, of course, but it looks nice and enhances that kind of appearance in general. In the front, the grille is really the biggest change, I feel. You've got Acura's new, you know, grille, and I honestly don't love how it's kind of like this. It looks a little tacky in my opinion, the little like plate in front, but I do think the overall grille itself looks really nice with the kind of like diamonds exploding from the inside. I do think that is a really nice look, and this is blacked out, of course, because it is the A-Spec trim. Overall, I do think the appearance of this car is really a high point. It's kind of subtle, but also definitely gets a lot of compliments from, you know, people walking around this car. It looks very modern and really puts Acura into the modern, you know, current era with all those really cool sports sedans. This is the modern steel metallic color, which I think really enhances the, you know, sportiness of the car. With the red seats especially, I think the gray and the red is a really nice color combination. All right, stepping into the interior of the car, you can immediately tell from the door panel that this is a very nice looking car from the inside. Looking at the ambient lighting on the side, it already looks like such a fantastic interior, right? I really think Acura has done a great job on the interior, making it look high quality. And I mean, again, for the price tag of this vehicle, $37,000 for the base trim, this interior looks fantastic. The A-Spec gets you some goodies like this flat bottom steering wheel here. You've also got these sport gauges instead. The red is a little tacky looking in my opinion, but you know, it still does definitely enhance the interior. I really think the red leather is the standout in this car. It looks fantastic. The suede Alcantara inserts look and feel really nice. I don't particularly love the feel of it, honestly, but I do think it looks really nice. And overall, I really am just very impressed with Acura's, you know, thoughtful touches and stuff. You've got actual stitching and everything, and I mean, the materials are all very high quality. You've got leather upholstery, and I love this aluminum brushed finish here, and the speaker system looks really, really fantastic. You can tell that this is a high quality interior that Acura really thought out, right? Like, this is definitely not something that they just put out as, you know, a fancier Accord, right? This is actually a different vehicle now. I will say some of the center console stuff isn't my favorite. I do think this looks a little cluttered, and I do think the digital display of the temperature doesn't look too good. In person, I feel like it looks a little low res or something. I don't know, it kind of bothers me a little bit. And I do love this logo in the middle. You've got it switching your different drive modes. You can go to sport, which gives you a cool animation. And you know, overall, if you click the middle, it goes to the individual settings, which is always pretty fun. Otherwise, I mean, they did a good job with this. This is fun, very similar to what you see in a lot of the German competitors right now. You've got ventilated and heated seats, 3 ways for those, for both the front and the passenger seat there. You've got auto hold, auto stop and start, of course, all that typical stuff. And your gear selector, I mean, it's fine. You've already seen this in the RDX and everything, but definitely not my favorite. It gets a little weird to use, right? I just don't like the concept that park is a button, everything is a button, and reverse is this little like knob that you kind of push in. It just feels a little weird. You've got a actual volume knob here, which is kind of nice. You got a skip track function here. I will say my least favorite part of the infotainment system definitely is this trackpad. So it is supposed to be literally one-to-one, so whatever you touch kind of is reflected up there, as you can kind of see here. You get the hang of it, honestly. I think the swiping function is what I find a little weird and a little annoying. It's just not the easiest thing to use, but I mean, you get used to it, but I don't think it's a good thing, honestly. There's a reason that Lexus has gone to actual touch screens, and I do think like this would function great as a touchscreen. Obviously, it's a little far away. If they moved it a little forward, they could do that, but overall, I mean, it's still an impressive infotainment system, a huge upgrade over the previous generation. You've got the new 10.25-inch infotainment screen right there. I don't like that Apple CarPlay doesn't take up the entire thing. As you can see, you've always got this little space on the right. But overall, I mean, you have enough real estate to where, you know, this 8 inches or however much right there does still look really good. And, you know, the car itself, Clearly the infotainment system is a huge improvement. It is their True Touch infotainment system, kind of a funny name because it's not actually a touchscreen. But you know, you can configure things, you can kind of show different things on the side profile here. You kind of adjust this with those buttons on the side, which, I mean, it's just a weird, I don't know. I feel like in a different world it would actually work, but overall I just really was not used to this. And I mean, at the end of my 2-day trip with this car, I was able to kind of get around it, but still, it's just not the easiest thing, right? An actual touchscreen would be a lot easier, or kind of just going, you know, even having a rotary knob. I think that's the thing, right? Like, at least give the option to have a rotary knob. You can see some of the cool sound settings you have here because of the 3D audio system, the ELS audio system. It's fantastic. I can't talk enough about it. I will say at low speeds, the system doesn't feel as great as you would expect, right? At low speeds, you can barely hear the, you know, crisp, clear 3D audio. But once you get to like something like, you know, maybe like 6 or 7 volume, which is very low, you can really hear how great the audio system is. But yeah, basically just, and sorry, when I mean low speeds, I mean low sound levels. You really don't hear it, but once you get to the higher sound levels, it sounds so great. It's like kind of like a symphony in your car. It's really cool because they have speakers actually in the suede headliner and everything up here, and that's how it kind of gives you that 3D immersive sound system. Moving on to kind of the driver position here, the steering wheel looks fine. It is actually very large and thick. I feel like that's something that I noticed is kind of interesting. And it does give it a sporty feel, right? It's very easy to put your hands at the 9.3 position. It feels very comfortable and grippy. No heated steering wheel on this, which I found kind of strange considering the A-Spec is actually quite a bit more expensive than the original. But otherwise, you know, you've got your adaptive cruise control stuff on the right, and you have your infotainment controls on the left-hand side here. You can kind of see the different things here in terms of what you can actually choose to display. And then on this side, you can also choose to display some different things. So go back here. But yeah, there's a host of different things you can display in the middle. I feel like most people are just going to stick with the digital display of their speed. I do like this one. You can kind of show how much power is being sent to each of the different wheels using the super handling all-wheel drive system, tire pressure monitors, of course, and then, yeah, I mean, I'll just stick onto the actual current speed, of course. But otherwise, you do have a lot of different things here. You have a G-force acceleration thing up there. And overall, I mean, this does look like a very typical gauge cluster. You've got 7 inches in the middle, which is actually digital, and then if you go, of course, you've got the analog tach and speedometer. I do wish that they did a fully digital display here, but honestly, this is almost as good as you can get without having it fully digital.
So I did want to take a moment and show you guys what the interior of the car looks like at night. So you've got that gorgeous ambient lighting, really makes the ride special, and I wanted to show you guys the startup sequence here. So when you start the car, the digital gauge cluster turns into this Acura logo that, you know, kind of zooms into view, and you have these really cool Tron-like graphics that kind of take over the entire car. The main infotainment screen shows your ELS premium audio system, and it just looks really cohesive and great. You can also see in the shutdown sequence, you also have something very similar, except the car now zooms out of view. How cool is that?
Now stepping into the rear seats, this is kind of a low point of this car, unfortunately. They are quite cramped. This is because even though Acura made this car so much longer, it still ultimately kind of fits weirdly between a compact luxury sedan and a midsize. So, I mean, with this seating position, I have enough legroom. Headroom is kind of tough. Like, my head's basically touching the suede headliner right now, which, I mean, of course, feels pretty good. You've also got a speaker right here, which is really, really fantastic. And, I mean, you can still see, right, you've got the ELS Studio 3D audio system here. 17 speakers. Great wattage. I mean, just a very powerful system in general. Honestly, it feels a little too powerful for the size of this car, but otherwise, I mean, you've got a really nicely pointed rear seats here. It's just definitely cramped. I feel like anyone taller than, you know, 6 foot or something is not going to have a great time in the back seats here. But it is comfortable, and I mean, you still got the nice suede Alcantara inserts here. So overall, I mean, it looks great. You don't have climate control back here. It's only dual zone climate control. But overall, I mean, the back is not where you really want to spend too much time, but of course, like any sports sedan, it's definitely focused on the driver and passenger. I was also a little disappointed that there's not a panoramic sunroof. It's only just a normal sized one right there. It does have tilt availability, so you can actually open it, but it doesn't feel as airy as it should, honestly, for the size of this car. I will say the seats are a very big highlight of this car. Overall, like, my thoughts on the actual interior, the actual choice of material is really great. Acura did a great job with that. Very thoughtful, and I feel like, you know, Honda's kind of carried that into the next generation Civic, which I'm very excited to drive at some point. But, you know, you've got great bolstering, and really the seats just, they look fantastic. They're very, very supportive, very comfortable, and it kind of makes up for the fact that the ride quality isn't the greatest, as I'll talk about later in the driving impression section. But, you know, overall, I think the interior looks really nice. There are a few things I would change, but overall, it definitely deserves the luxury badge on it. All right, so this really is a true proper sports sedan. Handling is fantastic with the all-wheel drive system, and I mean, it feels fast, right? Like, I think that's a huge compliment to Acura. I think they finally did the right thing here, and I mean, I can't wait to drive the Type S. I think that's going to be super fun. That actually has the 6-cylinder and 355 horsepower quad exhaust. That's a super exciting car to drive for sure. But this one, I mean, Acura did a great job with the chassis here, and I mean, I really think what they did with, you know, lowering it and you know, making it wider and more agile, aggressive, this feels way better than the previous generation. I will say the ride quality suffers a little bit because of that, right? It's not going to be the smoothest thing over bumps. The suspension really doesn't soak up all the bumps, kind of like the ES I drive does, but it is still a really nice car to drive, and you're definitely not going to be complaining about the ride quality, I think, with how much fun you'll have with this car. And again, you know, just everything about this car is so cohesive, I feel, right? Like, you've got the red leather seats, the Alcantara, all of it just lends itself to being and feeling more expensive and sporty than a car at this price tag should be, right? This is $46,000, and there's very few, you know, it's not like Porsches where they just, you know, try and nickel and dime you, right? $46,000, you get everything you need. You get all the safety features you want, and I mean, that's really, and you get Acura and Honda's, like, very famous reliability, right? I think that's also a big thing with this car, and ultimately, I just feel like there's very stiff competition considering this price tag, right? The 5 Series is going to be a better car, right? But you know that this undercuts that by probably almost $20,000 or so to get the same features. So ultimately, this is just such a strong competitor in the segment. So overall, I'm really happy that Acura is really taking a big step into the sports sedan segment. I mean, everyone knows that sedans are kind of a dying area, and I feel like especially sports sedans, right? Like a true fun sports sedan. If anything, I feel like the sedans that are still doing well are just the reliable ones out there, like the Accord, right, and stuff like that. But you know, you have this TLX, which is such a great car, and really, really impressed me. I mean, everything about this car, how cheap it is, the quality of the materials, the driving experience itself is just a really great overall cohesive experience, and I just really think that this car is, you know, a knockout of the park from Acura. All right, that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about today, guys. Thanks a bunch for watching. If you want to check out my other videos, look up here, and you can subscribe down here. Leave me a comment, tell me what you think about the newly redesigned TLX. I personally love it, obviously, and I hope you guys like it too. All right, see you guys in the next video.